But hello, church. Pray you're having a good start of the week for Thanksgiving week as we truly consider all the things we have to be thankful for, something we should be doing every single day of the year. Thanksgiving dinner has come together. Leon and the ladies have got everything squared away, and it sounds like there's going to be plenty of food. Be sure and invite people. I'm just trying to think if we shouldn't have some kind of dinner, periodically, just because people sometimes are not very well fed. And with the abundance that God has graced us with, we might be able to do this more than once a year and just let people know how much God loves them and provides for them. And, I don't know, it's just something that popped in my pointy little head, and I thought I'd share it with you. We've got a lot of people that are going to be traveling, family and family members, and we want to keep them in our prayers for safe travel. There are some storms and snow and that, so it's going to be a challenging time, I guess, for some as they either fly or drive here and there to be with family. But I'm so thankful that we as a family, as God's family, that assembles together here in Scio, that we are willing to spend some time just loving on people. We have to keep doing that over and over, loving on people and letting them know how important they are to us. I just thank you for watching and want to get back into our study about growing into Christ. And we're talking about love, which only fits because God is love. So we want to continue with that. Last week I tried to give you a little better understanding of the people that Jesus is talking to here. It's important that we understand that these words were written to them. They were in letters that were passed around to those folks at that time that meant so much to them. And we found where Jesus walked by and started calling Peter, James, John, putting his disciples together, who would eventually be apostles. And the people were dedicated Jews, but they were in a difficult time. Their government was oppressive. The temple, I explained how the Sadducees had run it for 6 months and the Pharisees had run it for 6 months, and so things would change almost all the time, and it's just hard for people to really understand. God's commandments never did, but the 600 plus that the Jews had added to it, it got confusing for people and very difficult to do. And so these are sincere people, sincere worshipers of God, and they're being called, and Jesus is introducing them to something new, something excited. I always think of the woman at the well, and Jesus said a time is coming, and it's now right here, when you won't go to a place to worship. You'll worship in spirit and truth. In spirit and reality. You're going to live your life that way. So precious, those thoughts. But anyhow, news had spread all over Syria, and people brought to Jesus people with sicknesses and diseases and suffering from pain and even demon-possessed and having seizures and paralyzed. They brought all those to him. And verse 25 of Matthew 4, verse 25 says, large crowds from Galilee, the Decapolis, Jerusalem, Judea, and the region across the Jordan followed him. So we know who our audience is when Jesus is teaching. Okay? So now we're going to go and put on our first century glasses, take these 21st century glasses off and lay them aside. I don't wear glasses when I do this because, I wear them all the time, but the reflection is too much, and I'll try and sit on my hands so I'm not waving at you all the time. But I do love you. God bless. So we know Scripture, or do we? Sometimes what we've been told may not be the correct teaching of a particular passage or passages. You heard a couple of years ago, one preacher was seeing John 4 and the woman at the well in one way, and I saw it in a different way, and we both tried to explain what we were thinking. So, it's okay. It's all right. We don't divide over these kinds of things. We just try to seek and search for the best understanding of what God's telling us. Okay, so we're going to start right now and remind you of the passage we began this lesson with last week, which is Matthew 7, verses 13 to 14. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few will find it. Now, there's several versions, and the NIV may not do the very best job on this particular one. The NRSV, the New Revised Standard Version, does a good job, and Young's literal translation of this passage says that the straight the gate and compressed the way, talking about the road that's hard. It's a straight, S-T-R-A-I-T, not straight like a straight shot. It's a hard road. And, when you're going through some of these places, it can get a little bit difficult. But that's what it is. It's a difficult road. David said in Psalm 139, he said that God had his arm and hand on him, guiding him. And that's what we need to pray for, is for us to guide us, to grant us his wisdom so that we can make the right turns and go in the right way and this, that, and the other. So that's kind of where the narrow gate leads to that road. It's a difficult road. You wonder why? Well, we'll look on and see what we can find. The gate that leads to destruction is broad, and the road is wide. So many people enter through it. But the gate that leads to life is narrow and difficult. So few people find it. Okay, we have the idea. Now, how have we treated this passage? How have I treated this passage? Before I stopped and really thought about it, I just accepted what had been given to me. And so now I'm thinking, could I be off base on this? It doesn't matter on my salvation, but it matters on understanding and seeking to know God better and to grow into our Christ, to be clothed with Christ more fully, because we understand what he's trying to tell us here, what he's telling those people there. So we've got that. We have that idea. Now, how have we treated this passage in the past? Well, first, we assume, and I use that word, we assume that the broad and easy way was living like the wicked world, and the narrow way was the Christian way. And only a few devout believers will follow it. Second, we've assumed that life, Jesus promises, at the end of the road means salvation. Therefore, only a few people will be saved. Now, is that kind of what your understanding is on it? I know that's what I've taught, unfortunately, because I think I've been wrong. But let's go on here and dig a little deeper. We're walking through the field. Let's turn over a few clods and see what's under there. See what's really being said here. These people, the audience, and that's what we got to understand. The audience, they were people that were hungry and tired and confused. Confused by the pressure from the government, confused by the Pharisees and Sadducees challenging each other, the Essenes out on this corner hauling all the men to go out there, and women aren't welcome. They were hungry and tired and confused. But they're Jews, God's chosen people, and they were looking for a teaching that would get them through their life. They may have even considered the possibility that Jesus was the promised Messiah. They had heard all these things he's doing, and that hadn't happened before. Not in their lifetime, that's for certain. And they were just wondering what's going on. This perspective might make us look at the passage in a little different light. What if the broad way is the easy way because it's laid out for you? Just follow all 600 plus laws that have been given to you. Each law is a brick on a wide road and a step-by-step road, like a footprint dancing diagrams, where you step here and step there, or in the Raiders of the Lost Ark where they had to step on this one and that one so that they didn't get speared, and there's so many other ways to look at that. But if that's the easy way, what is the hard one? I think he told us, or them, and it's a terrifying passage. Matthew 5, verses 17 to 20. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law for the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter, not the least stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of the least of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called the least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. For I tell you that unless your righteousness surpasses that of the Pharisees and teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Now that's a challenge. That had to be terrifying to these people. Jesus has just set up his audience to make them think, wow, it'll never happen. But he's going to show them something new. Like the woman at the well. I hate to keep going back there, but there's so many lessons to learn from her. She thought everything mattered about where you worship. On Mount Gerizim, like the people of Sychar did, or Jerusalem, where most of the Jews did. No, that's going to pass away. Well, Jesus is giving them something else here that's new. And unfortunately, I'm out of time. But what you need to do is you need to be thinking about this. Think about those passages that we've talked about. Think about the wide, easy road and the narrow, difficult road. think, how would those be? Have we always understood them correctly? That it's one leads to damnation and the other leads to heaven? We'll talk more about it next week. I hope you can come back and hear us, see what we find out as we kick over a few more clods in this field, God's field. And the harvest is there, ready for us to love people to Jesus. God bless. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving.